Ahoy there, Captain Benzie here, coming at you with another video for Eve Echoes. In today's video I wanted to have another sort of sit down and chill talk with you all about why I love the Bellicose Covert Ops line of ships, why I'm having a lot of fun in these recently, and I've kind of been using this almost as my main ship, which again, considering that I originally started as a frigate and destroyer main and I recently moved into flying battleships as my most commonly flown ship, it's nice to be in something a little bit faster, but still it's not frigates or destroyers, so what on earth is going on there? Well, that's what today's video is going to be about. We're going to be talking all about this line of ships and what I do with it and why I enjoy them so much. Now, if you do enjoy this video, please let me know by hitting a like on it, sub to the channel for all things Eve Echoes, and please, please, please ding that notification bell, tap all notifications. YouTube has been doing a weird thing with its algorithm recently, where gaming YouTubers are really struggling to get their videos out. I've noticed a lot of the YouTubers I personally subscribe to, I've not been getting their notifications unless I go through and tap all notifications. It just seems to be YouTube really messing around and it's harming a lot of us. So if you care, please tap that notification bell, ding all notifications. I know I'm going on about it, but it really does make a huge difference. Anyway, with all that said and done then, let's talk about the Bellicose Covert Ops line of ships and why I like these things so much. Now, once you hit tech level 6, the original Bellicose becomes available, and it's an interesting little cruiser for sure, but the fun really starts to begin once you hit tech level 7, and you can start flying the Bellicose Covert Ops. Now, one, it has a really cool colour scheme. You know me, I always like the Thucker Tribe skins, that sort of mottled white, grey and black. I just think that's a really cool looking skin. When we have a look at its trait description though, this is where the magic comes in. First of all, we've got the roll bonuses, can fit Covert Ops cloaking devices, and can be fitted with sinusoidal field generators. Now, you'll know from previous videos, which I'll link up at the top of the screen and in the description if I remember, that I've recently changed Captain Benzie, my main character. Instead of being a frigate and destroyer main with all of the small weapon skills, it's now what I'm referring to as a Covert Ops main, focusing on things like the Covert Ops frigates and cruisers, the Explorer frigates, the Estero, and just having fun with things in that sense. So basically anything that can fit a Covert Ops cloaking device is fair game for this character, and the Bellicose Covert Ops is one of the first ships you'll get, in cruiser level at least, where that is genuinely the case and you can start fitting those and having fun with them. Now, what makes the Bellicose line of Covert Ops cruisers stick out to me more than the other lines are the advanced micro warp drive operation bonuses that we get here. First of all, we get a 10% reduction to warp drive signature radius penalty. That 50% reduction to signature radius penalty there at full training means that you can activate a micro warp drive and quite comfortably speed tank with it. You're going to be going as fast as a micro warp drive can push you, but without making you as ridiculously big as it normally would. Basically, the benefits now outweigh the cost rather than being balanced by them, which is just a really nice thing to have there. It means you can definitely speed tank with the Bellicose Covert Ops. Especially since, if we go into its attributes and fittings, the Bellicose Covert Ops has a very small signature radius to begin with of 79.1 meters that Advanced Cruiser Command is going to reduce by a further 20% at full training, that minus 4% per level. So you're looking at, what, 79.1 minus 20% of that, 10% is about 8, so 816. You're looking at 63? About 63 meters that goes right the way down to, which for a Tech 7 cruiser is tiny. That's on par with like a destroyer basically at that point, but moving with a micro warp drive and with cruiser sized firepower. In fact, the only real downside that you'll get to the Bellicose is its defences. 12,950 is pitiful. This is a paper thin tank. If you do get hit, it is going to hurt. Now, the reason I like the Bellicose, as I said, more than the others, more than the Blackbird, the Arbitrator, and the Celestis personally, is its E-War bonus, 7.5% increase to Target Painter target effect. Now remember, a Target Painter makes your opponent's ship bigger, and a bigger ship means you take more damage from things like turrets and, notably, missiles. Target Painters work really, really well with missiles, and unusually, the Target Painter here, the Bellicose Covert Ops' E-War, not only affects the fleet, but actually benefits you as well. It's one of the unique things there. Like a tracking disruptor is all very well and nice, but it only works on one ship, and, you know, it still requires either them to have turrets or missiles if you're going tracking disruptor or guidance disruptor. Target Painter always works on whatever you're firing at. It makes it bigger. Bigger target means more damage from your missiles and from anyone else in your fleet as well. That means that you can actually use the Bellicose Covert Ops quite comfortably both for solo PvE, because if you want to be flying this in anomalies or encounters, you don't have to worry too much about the small targets. You can use medium torpedoes, you can use medium missiles, rather than having to worry about using medium rapids. Rapids are all very well and good, but they're lower DPS than torpedoes and missiles, shorter range as well. The advantage of them, obviously, is their application, but by having that target painter boost, you get a bonus to your application anyway, which means you're going to be doing more damage and against those smaller targets. That is the strength, as far as I'm concerned, of the Bellicose line. And once you hit tech level 9, we get my personal favourite of these, the ones that I tend to fly most. I'm going to be showcasing the Bellicose 3 in this video, but the Bellicose 2 Covert Ops is kind of the middle ground. It's a lot better than the Bellicose 1, whilst only being slightly worse than the Bellicose 3, but it is considerably cheaper than the Bellicose 3 Covert Ops. This is a lot cheaper, but not a lot lesser in its stats, if that makes sense. The cost of the Bellicose 3, in my opinion, outweighs the increase. I love the Bellicose 3 Covert Ops. Brilliant ship, as we'll talk about later, but if you're looking for cost effectiveness, the Bellicose 2 Covert Ops is the one that takes the biscuit. Now again, you've got that can-fit Covert Ops cloaking devices and the sinusoidal field generators. We now get the 50% reduction to the cloaking device lock delay, which means this is now much better for PvP as well, especially soloing. If you want to drop your cloak and then immediately start targeting something, it's only a 15-second delay rather than a 30-second delay, which still a long time, but it's better than it otherwise would be. We've got 7.5% target paint to target effect, and the 10% increase to decrease to signature radius penalty again, reduced signature radius, better missile and torpedo flight velocity, and better damage. This is kind of, as I said, the middle ground version of the Bellicose Covert Ops. You've got a good firepower, still pathetic tank across the board, smaller signature radius, which you can get down really small thanks to the -4% signature radius bonus from Advanced Cruiser Command. Basically, you're getting a fast-moving, hard-hitting ship that is notoriously difficult to actually hit. And I'm going to showcase this by then having a look at the Bellicose 3 Covert Ops. Now, this is currently in the same fit as I was using in the recent Catskull Academy lesson, where I talked about sinusoidal fields and jump drives and things like that. So I've got it set up in that way, but I'll talk about the fittings in a moment. Now, the Bellicose 3 Covert Ops, again, we're looking very similar to what we had before. The big difference here now is that the target paint to target effect has gone from 7.5% per level to 10% per level. That is a huge increase. You've gone from a 37.5% increase to a 50% increase, which just massively affects your enemy ships and the damage application that you can do to them. This means I have no qualms at all about using medium torpedoes. Yeah, sure, they've got a very low explosion velocity and a very high explosion radius, which means they normally would struggle to hit small targets, but I'm not going to be fighting small targets. Even things like interceptors are going to be nice big targets, thanks to me having 2 of the Republic fleet target painters, making their signature radius 52.2% bigger each. And again, of course, there is a stacking penalty there, but that works out to about 80 to 90% increase. So if you're talking about a ship that has, say, a 25 meter signature radius, you're making that 80-90% bigger. You're taking that all the way up to 50 meters, if not larger. Which suddenly makes it a considerably easier to hit target. Again, maths isn't my strong point on the fly, so please don't sort of go, oh, well, actually, Benzie, it's 53 meters. I don't care. My point, it remains. You're making the target a lot bigger, and thus you're able to apply damage a lot better, even using things like medium torpedoes. Now, if I'm in a situation where actually I fancy having a bit of range, of course I will swap those to medium missiles. I don't use rapids on the Bellicose 3 Covert Ops because there is no point. Medium missiles with those 2 target painters do as well as rapids do. Obviously, though, the medium missiles have longer range and higher DPS, so if you're going up against things like cruisers and battleships, where you don't have to worry about their signature radius, then you'll find that you're still applying that damage as well as you would, but it's higher damage and longer range than the rapids would do. Basically, the roll bonus of the Bellicose Covert Ops line of ships, the fact that they get those bonuses to target painters, means that you don't need rapids. Rapids' advantage is that they can apply their damage to small targets. You're not going to be facing small targets because any small target you come across, you're going to turn into a big target. Now, for the low slots here, I've gone for 2 ballistic C-type control systems and a Gistom C-type medium micro warp drive. Those are standard for me. Those ballistic control units allow me to get to a cold DPS here of 1,190, and if I go double hot, that hits 1,850. I think it's nearly 2,000 DPS on a cruiser, using a blue tier nanocore because I'm not made of money, and I don't have the capability of putting purple nanocores on absolutely every ship that I fly, so this one does happen to only have a blue, but I've gone for the standard missile torpedo damage on it. Now, the 4th low slot gets mixed up and around. Here I've gone for a Covert Ops cloaking device. This means I'm using this for a more exploration-based approach. I'm going to be using this either for hunting in enemy territory, so solo roaming, or I'm going to be fleet roaming, where I'm using this to generate a sinusoidal field, hence the sinusoidal field generator here in the mid slots. And basically this is going to be my aggressive roaming or exploring. If I'm going looking for relic and data sites, I will have a Mark 9 Covert Ops cloaking device on. If I'm going hunting for PvP, I will have the Mark 9 Covert Ops cloaking device on. It's how I get through gate camps, it's how I move through enemy territory with impunity, and we'll talk more about that in just a second. Now, depending what you're going to be doing in enemy territory affects our mid-slots. I've got the sinusoidal field generator here for the time being. This is, as I said, a hangover from when I did the Catskull Academy on sinusoidal fields. Basically, this would be the one I use to get into enemy territory, light that beacon, and summon an entire fleet of capitals to my position. The reason I've gone for torpedoes in this fit is basically because whilst I've got that beacon lit, if anyone's going to hunt me down and jump to me, basically I want to hit them with as much damage as possible before they can kill me. Ultimately, there's not much tank on this ship, and I don't really recommend going heavy into tank because there's no point. If you were to put shield boosters and things on, you're going to lose cap stability, you're still not going to survive because your tank is that paper thin. You just can't really work with it. You have to accept that this is primarily a hit and run ship. Now, this means that if I were going hunting, I would swap that sinusoidal field generator for something like a warp scrambler, or of course a narrow resonance scanner. I would also lose the Nosferatu for one of those, either a warp scrambler. Basically, I'd swap the Sino and the Nosferatu there for a scrambler and for a narrow resonance scanner. I might even swap one of the target painters for a second scrambler if I'm anticipating going up against targets that may otherwise be, a little bit too hard to pin down. That said, if I'm going exploring, obviously I would swap the Sino for a wide resonance scanner, going looking for relic and data sites, and I would swap one of the target painters and the Nosferatu again for the two analyzers, the relic analyzer and the data analyzer. That gives me the opportunity to scan down sites, and if I'm in a site and someone scans me down and jumps in, chances are they're in an interceptor or an Astero or something like that. At which point, if I can lock onto them with the single target painter and 4 torpedoes, the amount of damage I'm going to do instantly to them should be enough to scare them away. I don't really need to worry about warp scramblers. I'm not hunting for kills, I'm hunting for loot, and if someone jumps in, I can either run away or I can scare them off with superior firepower. Now, talking about being scanned down, this to me is one of the massive bonuses of these ships. In the rigs here, I've gone for 3 emission scope sharpener 3s, 15% reduction to source radius, and you'll see that takes my source radius down to 133 meters. That is smaller than most destroyers. That is frigate-sized source radius. That's very hard to scan down and is very, very useful if you're going to be using a sinusoidal field generator, for example, to generate a beacon for a fleet, or if you're just going into enemy territory and you want to jump to a safe spot and, sort of catch your breath. Or heck, if you're in a relic and data site and you're worried that someone's going to scan you down with a narrow resonance scanner for some PvP, they're not likely to be able to. They are going to need to have exploration skills, they're going to need to have very good scanners and possibly hull bonuses or rigs in order to actually be able to scan this ship down, which personally I think is awesome. Now, this also works in PvE. Because of the bonuses to the signature radius and to the target painters, I tend to basically use this exact setup here, obviously swapping the Sino for something like either another Nosferatu or a scanner. I'll swap out the Covert Ops Cloak as well for something like a shield extender. Basically, if I'm doing solo PvE, I'm doing anomalies or encounters in high sec, low sec, the fact that I'm very difficult to scan is very useful to start with. The shield extender means I can get away nice and easily, and if something does start targeting me and hits me through my speed tank, well, I've got a bit of extra shield that I can activate at a moment's notice. On the other hand, if I'm going fleet PvE, like if we're going ratting, then I'll run this exact setup, again swapping the Covert Ops Cloak for a shield extender, and swapping the Sino for a wide resonance scanner. Hang on, Benzie, why would you do that? Well, basically, I jump into the fleet with the other battleships, they're destroying stuff, I'm whizzing around targets, keeping sort of an 11 to 14 kilometer range. 14 kilometers obviously is the range of my torpedoes, 11 kilometers is the optimal range of my medium energy Nosferatu there. This allows me to be completely cap stable whilst whizzing around as a speed tank and doing extreme damage to small and medium and semi-large targets. By the time I'm hitting battleships, I'm the guy going after the frigates, destroyers and cruisers, then I move up to the battle cruisers and battleships while the rest of the fleet is sort of still taking those down. I do a lot of damage to the smaller stuff and start working up. Now the wide resonance scanner is because at the end of each anomaly that we clear, I will activate that wide resonance scanner and see if we have successfully spawned a dead space, an overseer dead space, which we can then go in and clear as a group. Someone needs to scan those down, they don't appear in the overview. The Bellicose 3 Covert Ops seems a really good ship to do that. At which point, if I'm doing that a lot, I tend to swap that third emission scope sharpener for the additional scan resolution, just to bring that down so that I can get the wide resonance scanner just small enough, just below 75, so I can scan any site in nullsec. Ultimately, those are such cheap rigs that I've got about 50 of them stacked, and I can swap between those with impunity. If I'm going to be going ratting, I'll swap that emission scope sharpener to the gravity scope for scanning down sites. Then once I'm done with that, if I want to go roaming or doing a Sino run or something, I'll just swap back to the emission scope, because these are literally 2 million a pop. It's almost nothing in order to do that. And that's kind of it. The Bellicose Covert Ops line of ships are by far my favourite Covert Ops ships because they just are so versatile. You can do solo PvE, you can do solo PvP, you can do fleet PvE, fleet PvP, you can be the support guy running a Sino, you can be the scout, you can be looking for relic and data sites, you can be doing, combat anomalies. There is just so much stuff you can be doing with this ship, and its bonuses just synergize so well with itself, and I love it. I absolutely adore this hull, and if you're thinking about doing this kind of content or just want a versatile ship, you really can't go wrong with the Bellicose Covert Ops line. The Bellicose 3 Covert Ops is the one I use in a perfect situation, but the Bellicose 2 Covert Ops is the one that I've got 3 more sitting in my hangar because they are that cheap by comparison. Anyway, that's my thoughts and opinions regarding the Bellicose Covert Ops line of ships. Please let me know yours in the comment section down below. If you're flying a Bellicose Covert Ops, let me know how you fit it, what kind of content are you doing with it, how are you finding it? And as well, if you're flying any of the other Covert Ops ships, I'm looking to branch out a bit more. I've been flying a Blackbird fairly frequently, they're just not as good as the Bellicose as far as I'm concerned. The Arbitrator, I picked up one of those recently and I'm having a lot of fun in an Arbitrator 3 Covert Ops. I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions on those, what kind of fits you're running for it, and the same with the Celestis. It may be the ugliest ship in the entirety of EVE Echoes for me, but I kind of want to give it a try. I need to skill into some medium turrets really before I worry too much about that one. But let me know your thoughts and opinions on the Celestis, if that's one you're running, the Arbitrator, if that's one you're running. I'd love to know what you think. Anyway, folks, thank you for letting me wax lyrical about one of my favourite ships currently. I am a very lucky guy that I get to do this as my job. I get to just sit and talk about a game that I love, and you folks seem to enjoy that, so thank you ever so much for your support. If you do want to go the extra mile to help support this channel and keep me doing what I do, please head across to either Patreon or our Redbubble merchandise store. I'd love you to, check those out, and if you, if fancy donating and, helping me out, awesome, all the better. Anyway, folks, thanks for watching right the way to the end. Happy sailing, and see you in New Eden.